It smells good in the studio today.
Oh, it smells very good in the studio today.
I got to tell you, it smells awesome. We'll get to why it smells awesome in just a moment. Welcome to the Old Stoney's podcast. I'm Justin McDonald.
And I'm Matt Criscione.
And we are coming to you from the TalkCast PDX studios here in Portland, Oregon. We are, of course, also on Aftermath.fm. We love them as well.
Second show down.
Second show. We appreciate them very much so. Of course, the show brought to you by BudTenderShirts.com. So if you want to help support the show, you just go to budtendershirts.com, buy a shirt, and then I can feed my children. Matt, how you been? How's your week?
I've been good. I'm feeling a lot better. I'm off of my cold thing.
Good.
Yep, we lived and survived, and we're on to fight another day.
We didn't let you in the studio last week.
I didn't let myself in the studio either. I don't want to leave home. Thank God for all this technology we got.
We want to thank Myron Chatowitz from Can Essentials for being our guest last week.
That was a good show.
We appreciate him and their team, and for him taking time out to chat with us. So it's always nice.
Always
a great thing. So we'd like to just kind of jump right into it. We got a whole hour to fill, so we have to make sure we use our time wisely
and entertainingly.
I don't know how well that is. We had a little pre-funk. Check it out on our Instagram at the Old Stonies.
Yeah.
Matt has the camper dab rig set up,
nice.
And it was pretty nice.
Yeah, Bronco. I got a new Bronco Sport. And it's got an inverter in the back. And I'm like,
yes,
I could plug my e-nail into this thing. We could do dabs out of the back of the rig. I'm like, oh my God, thank you, Ford.
He's planning camping trips and all kinds of stuff.
Right. I'm pretty sure they didn't intend that, but I'm using it.
That's good stuff. Well, welcome to our studio. We haven't talked to this guy in a long time. We're glad to have him here. We have Tyson Haworth, right? That's how we say it.
Yeah.
And you're with Sofresh Farms, and you're located in Canby.
Yep, just outside of Canby, about 10 minutes south.
And you guys have been there for a long time now, right?
Yeah, we started there back in 2012.
Give us a little history of how the farm became a farm. How did you get to that conclusion? I'm going to start growing cannabis, and here we go.
Well, I think like a lot of cannabis growers, it started in basements, closets, garages, did that for many years. It actually officially went from a hobby to more of a profession after my wife had her second back surgery, and I became a formal medical grower back in 2007. And then from there, it slowly progressed. We've, grew good weed, and we had more people that wanted us to grow for them. And so eventually, the laws started to change, and we saw that you could produce more than was being consumed by the medical patients. And so, in 2012, we'd just had our first son, first kid, and we decided that we needed to get out of the basement and move out into the sun. Start a farm. And so at that point, we moved to Canby and started to scale up our operations. But in those days, you couldn't legally produce cannabis beyond the medical system. And so what we did is we actually grew tomatoes in our hothouse for the first couple of years. We sold them to New Seasons Market as well as at farmers markets.
I bet those were some damn good tomatoes.
We did, yeah.
Because I know how good the cannabis is. I'm just wondering that those tomatoes.
Yeah,
have been awesome.
We always called them our medical tomatoes, So we'd grow seasonally. In the wintertime, we'd grow tomatoes, and in the summertime, we'd grow cannabis. And then 2014, I see you guys are wearing some nice Oregon's Finest shirts. Thanks for repping it. We started that retailer with a couple of partners there, and we were one of the first retail license in the state for medical cannabis.
You guys
sales.
were the first.
Number one
on that list.
Number one on the list of 10. That was Oregon's Finest. Cool. Definitely not in alphabetical order, that's for sure.
No, absolutely not. And back in those days, you guys were really taking a big leap of faith. I mean, nobody it expressly said, hey, why don't you guys go ahead and open a store and start doing this?
There was a lot of gray area.
We had a lot of really, right before that, we had a lot of really shady spots where there were guys that were just kind of renting a house. And you show up and, there'd be like some sort of product out there. Nothing was being tested. Nothing was being, organically grown. It was just kind of black market to storefront, and you guys kind of took that to the next level and brought a little bit of accountability to that.
Yeah, when we first started, there wasn't testing offered in the state. You couldn't get your cannabis tested. Greenleaf Labs was actually the first one to open here in Oregon for a cannabis testing lab. But prior to that, patients actually had to take it and get it tested themselves. And luckily, we had a couple of patients in Washington that were able to go up to the lab up there, and that's where we got our first test results, was out of labs in Washington State, ironically.
Nice. Yeah, nice.
We don't do that anymore, but
right.
The gray area was a little different back then. It's pretty.
It was a blurry gray.
Yeah.
It wasn't just gray; it was blurry gray.
They allowed Washington patients to have Oregon weed back
That's
then.
right. That's right. I forget that.
Yeah.
About Sofresh Farms, I mean, you guys have definitely gone into the rec realm, but you guys still believe yourself as a, leading regenerative farm out there for medical patients and growing quality medical medicine, basically.
Yeah, my background prior to growing tomatoes and prior to growing cannabis was in the organic produce industry. I ran a company called Organically Grown Company, and we distributed fresh fruits and vegetables. And, prior to that, my parents were, I think my grandma was the first owner of a natural food store in Escondido in the 50s.
Nice.
And so
when you walk in, it just smells like bean sprouts and like brewer's yeast.
Yeah,
I love that.
She wasn't such a fan of the chemical agriculture that was becoming real popular in those days, and so she saw that, hey, we need to do this differently, and eventually we started calling it organic. But in my history with Organically Grown Company, which ironically was just a couple of blocks from where we are right now, I ran the warehouse right under the Morrison Bridge there.
Oh, right on.
Yeah. So this is like a homecoming here,
right?
I love the Southeast neighborhood.
Yeah, this is really, it's really some good old history, some good buildings in here.
Yeah, I love this. I love the area, so that's nice. That's why we didn't really choose the area; it chose us.
Right?
It's funny how that works. Yeah.
So you start the farm, you got the shop. It seems like a good combination.
Yeah, and we're always, like Matt was asking, we're real believers in living soil. It doesn't mean you're going to have the highest output, because a lot of times you sacrifice the amount of turns that you can create in a year by growing a plant in a living soil bed. And so, we believe that yield sacrifice is more than outweighed by the improvement in quality, and not just the quality of cannabis that you produce, but the quality of life for your employees, for the environment, everything that we can do good by doing business. And it's always been about at the produce company, we'd like to say that we change culture through agriculture. And we feel the same thing here in cannabis. Like the shirt you're wearing says cannabis is not a crime, right? And that was a big deal back in 2015.
It was huge.
Because
it was huge.
Yeah.
And not only that, but as this industry matures, we're going to get more of a microscope on the resource consumption and what it takes. And you guys from the start are, like you said, you might not be yielding a lot, but you guys are not using a lot of resources either. And you use the sun when it makes sense. I remember touring your farm when we did our Dope magazine, and you were taking the moisture from your clone room and you were moving air around and moving moisture around and trying to reuse every single resource as many times as possible. And I thought that was pretty impressive.
Yeah, we always try and follow the model that waste equals food. You just got to find out, what that food is. Who wants to eat your waste, basically.
Right.
And luckily, working with microbes, and that's been another big awakening in the whole process, is learning. I know, Justin, you're familiar with Jeff Lowenfeld's work, but learning about the soil food web and all the various different
changed my life.
It really did. It changed my perspective.
When I met Jeff, and actually Jeff and I go way back to Alaska days. When I lived in Anchorage and was a GM of a radio station there, and he did a gardening show for me, and we met through that.
Yeah, the longest running garden columnist in
America.
Yeah,
and awesome. We met through a mutual through Tom Tierney, and we ended up hitting it off and started doing a show. Been barbecues at his house on the 4th of July and all that good stuff. And he just taught me all about the food soil web, and then he gave me the book, and I read the book. But then just hanging out with him all the time, you learn all these different things. I learned about fungi, I learned about mycorrhizal fungi, I learned about bacteria. He's got a new book coming out,
teaming with bacteria.
but that's coming out after the first of the year, I think.
Have you had him on your show yet?
We begged and we reached out, and
I'll make sure to mention it next time I see him.
He's a busy man.
He's a busy guy. He actually was doing some stuff. We were doing teaming with tips on Talkcast PDX, but he just got too busy to where he could take time to record.
He hasn't been in town much, but I like to call them my Tuesdays with Jeff lunches, and so
he's awesome. Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's it's a good way to spend our afternoons.
I remember the first time I met him, he goes, "Yeah, they call me the Lord of the Roots."
Yeah, Lord of the Roots.
My own trilogy books. I'm like, that's awesome.
The Germinator. We used to on the show. Actually, the radio show was called The Garden Party.
Okay.
And he'd call himself America's dirtiest lawyer. It was always
very appropriate.
And it was one of those 2-hour call-in type shows. And we even did it in the winter because you got these people who are doing gardening indoors, and that's part of their keeping things going.
I don't know if you read that New York Times article that was written about him recently, but how he basically documented climate change through his garden column over the years. And so it's interesting just to look back, all these things that we never thought about that we're experiencing at an exponential pace of change.
But you can see these small changes in the articles. It's like, it was really warm this spring. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, I saw that.
That's pretty good stuff. Yeah. So, well, Jeff, we beg you, we want to get you on the show. There you go. So you got the farm up, you got the store up. Explain the type of growing you do, because like somebody who's listening, they might know somebody put some dirt in a pot, and a seed. Explain the scale and how and what it is you actually how you grow.
Yeah, I think it might be easiest to start by explaining what we don't do. And, the standard practice that you see most cannabis in the market is, what I like to call a take, make, waste model. And basically they're taking soil from, or some growing media, rock wool cubes, they're inputting synthetic fertilizer to grow the plant as big and as fast as possible. And then they're throwing that all away at the end of each round and starting over fresh.
Right.
And they repeat that process 5 or 6 times a year is the goal. And so while one of the things that you get out of that process is, something that, looks like it was made in China, where it's all flashy plastic, it has what some people are looking for, and that's bag appeal, right?
Right.
It runs for 3 minutes and then breaks.
It's like one of those bright new shiny toys.
All flash, no sizzle.
Exactly. And, to contrast that system, kind of follow like the slow food movement, or really sitting down, breaking bread, whatever metaphor you want to use. We use the same soil. We've been using the same soil since we started, in 2012.
That's amazing.
And these are in raised beds.
And so we will start our plants, cloning, similar processes that most people perform, and then we'll grow them in small containers for about a month or so, and then once they're mature enough, we'll transplant them into our raised beds inside of our greenhouse. And the big difference in our process is that it takes, depending on the various different factors, 10 days to 3 weeks for the plants to adjust to their environment. So they go through a little time period before we can start flowering in our flower houses. And so what that means is that while the guy that's growing with synthetics is probably getting 5 or 6 rounds a year, we're getting 3.5, maybe 4 rounds a year. But at that time, what it does is it allows the plant to plug into the soil food web and the network of fungi and bacteria that's in your soil, and create symbiotic relationships in that soil. And so instead of me deciding when that plant's going to grow by the nitrogen and phosphorus that I'm adding into the soil, I'm saying, okay, here's the environment that's going to support all of the plant's needs. And what the plant has is it has a bunch of little microbes inside of it that's that are, giving the soil what it needs, and then the soil's giving the plant what it needs. And if you listen to the latest science,
I love that description.
There's apparently there's microbes inside of the root hair. They used to think that it was the exudates or the waste produced from the plant that feeds the microbes, and the microbe waste that feeds the plant. But what actually happens now is the plant has these microbes inside of it, and it sends the microbe out into the soil through the tip of the root hair, and then brings it back into the soil, into the plant. And apparently every microbe that the plant needs is encoded inside of its seed. And so a plant is basically in charge, and it goes into the living soil and it says, hey, give me this microbe at this time, or this fungi at this time. And then it evolves that. And by creating an environment that supports all of those needs, the right moisture level, temperature, humidity, light, the basics that we have to hit, we're able to, let the plant decide how it tastes and how it smells and the impact it's going to have on you versus whatever nutrient program you're buying to feed it to. Because a lot of these synthetic programs will create plants that look real pretty and plastic, but they don't,
the plant's looking at these inputs and going, I mean, I'll take this and maybe I'll take that, but I'm not going to deal with this other shit here.
But it makes the plant smell the same, and it makes the plant taste the same, because you're actually feeding the plant instead of feeding the soil. And while it's a faster process, I think it creates a less diverse process, and it doesn't bring out the chemovar expressions that we get, with.
I want to taste the earth. That's what I mean. That's, I feel like that if you, that kind of, I want that.
I've definitely noticed that. Me and my neighbor across the street, we'll get the same genetics. And he will use his old school. This guy's been growing since the 80s, man. And
Rockwell cubes and hydro.
All these hydro stuff. And one year we actually took 55-gallon drums and buried them in the ground and did a hydro outdoors just to see what would happen. I've never seen a plant grow that fast.
That's amazing.
It was great. It was breaking itself. It was
just
so
like
huge.
They're on steroids.
Me, on the other hand, I have this little slow growing, and we went through the harvest and cured everything out. You can definitely taste the difference. We're in the same area. We're using the same plants, same soil, but I'm using 100% certified green organic, stuff, and he's using all of his salts and stuff. And there's a huge difference. His nugs look bigger. His nugs look a little prettier, but man, you couldn't taste anything. Not compared to my stuff.
Taste too, and I think that there's also a distinction between organic feed the plant and organic feed the soil. And so stuff that's readily available actually feeds the plant, and you don't get that microbe exchange process because the plant can actually uptake those nutrients directly. The stuff that's like slow release that takes 30, 60, 120 days before the microbes can actually break it down actually requires those symbiotic relationships to be created. And so when there's a split even amongst organic between what I would call like industrialized organic, because like Nectar of the Gods, like they'll say is 90% organic, which is what most of the people that grow organic good weed use, some sort of system like that.
Right.
But they can't create an organic nitrogen fertilizer that's readily available. And so they still use a synthetic inside it there. And so that's why you'll hear a lot of people say that they're, I'm 90% organic, which means you're 0% organic.
Well, I want to get out of the soil and kind of get above into the plants. One of the most important things we have to deal with are pests.
I know, but I was enjoying, Tyson Haworth weed science guy moment.
That's going to get a lot deeper here.
I know.
You guys
go for it.
You guys went for a cover crop. I don't know if you guys are still doing that, but what is your integrated pest management regimen right now? Because we're not allowed to be spraying, chemicals willy-nilly.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Willy-nilly? Okay.
There's
I like it.
A side note, but make sure we get back to this. So there's a recent challenge that we had where someone was using the Oregon's Finest name and the farm for hemp production. And I can't go into specifics, but they're not going to be using the name anymore. And what was interesting when I was reading their website, they were claiming that that using organic fertilizer is dangerous because of the chemicals that are fed to cows and various different other animals that go in to be the base of the organic fertilizers create risk to the consumer ultimately, because the plants are uptaking these chemicals in theory. And so what they claim on their website, which was interesting, is that they have to actually not use organic fertilizer. They have to use synthetic fertilizer because it's cleaner than organic fertilizer. And
Okay.
and their argument
Weird.
is, and when you're talking about pesticides,
Right.
anybody that uses a pesticide on cannabis in the state of Oregon, there isn't any, I mean, there's various degrees, but most of what we're allowed to use is just over-the-counter stuff. And so it's not like most agriculture where you can use real harmful pesticides. And so most people growing cannabis in the state of Oregon have to use what would be termed organic pesticides.
Mhm.
And so it really, you kind of have to step back and ask yourself, what's your approach? And, do you spray proactively, or do you try and let the plant do its own thing and prevent the pesticide from being introduced into the system in the first place?
Yeah.
Because anytime you're spraying a neem or a sulfur or any of these compounds that are allowed in both organic and cannabis production, they'll create residues on your plants. A lot of time your plants don't like them, especially when you're extracting the material. You start to extract and really can condense these residues, and it creates bad flavors. You've heard of like maybe neem sickness.
I
don't know.
have some friends that are dealing with that. When I was an extractor over at Mana,
Yeah.
I had an entire run and 150 gallons of solvent ruined because of sulfur.
Yeah.
The stuff looked great. It smelled great, but boy, when you dabbed it, oh boy. And we had a couple rounds of things that popped for pesticides, because once we concentrate, it's concentrated.
Yeah.
So even just a little bit can really, really mess up your day. But
so how do you create a plant that was never introduced to these compounds?
Right.
Well, that might be organic still, and it might be safe still. It probably doesn't taste good or have as good of an effect.
Exactly.
And so what we try and do from the beginning is whatever cultural practices we can take, because a lot of times pests are responding to unhealthy plants. And in theory, like imagine you have X-ray vision and a plant that is too hot, and that's a lot of ways where you can tell if it's not uptaking the water. You'll see about a 5-degree temperature spike. These plants will be warmer than their neighbors if they're under some sort of stress. And so what the bugs can do is they see that. And when you look in a greenhouse and, if you take your laser or your heat camera and look at your canopy, you can see hot spots in your canopy.
That's incredible.
And so what happens?
Fun.
It's interesting.
Yeah,
I've had the guys with the FLR camera come out and take some shots, and it's interesting to look at.
But just like a wolf, hunting a pack of caribou, they know which ones.
They can smell them.
We're gonna go after that one. He doesn't look real good.
And so unhealthy plants are going to be the first thing that attract pests to your garden. And so the right watering, temperature, humidity, light, all of those will reduce the amount of unhealthy plants. And the number one thing is most people overwater, or underwater, or don't have a consistent moisture level. And when, your plant goes through that stress cycle, it, attracts pests. Once you get, a plant that has visible signs of pests, you've lost at that point, and so depending on where you are in your cycle, likely you're going to employ, whatever the lowest impact pesticide is that you're allowed to use in this market. When I look at preventatives, a lot of things that we'll do are predatory pests are real common these days, and they're good as a preventative. You have like your trap plants, which are like your early indicator, a little bean sprout in there that the plant likes better.
Right.
If the bug likes better than your plant, they'll attract the pest to that plant. And so that's that's a good, canary in the coal mine, so to speak. And then there's like your repellent plants. And so like you can plant repellent plants like around your intakes and around your pathways.
What's an example of a repellent plant?
Like rosemary
really?
or
Stuff you can use.
Yeah.
But real aromatic.
Yeah. As, a lot of the pesticides are made with these herbs, and they're just, concentrated basically. And then, like you're talking about, you have your canopy or your interplantings that are create, an environment for, the microbes to thrive, between rounds is real important. Because when you pull that plant out of there, if you don't have something still living in your soil, then all of a sudden all of the biology that you've worked to create dies.
Just falls apart.
And so depending on the cycles you have, you need to be able to keep those alive or reintroduce them at the right point.
I'm just going over my mind, since you guys began in 2012, how you guys figured all this out. There must have been calamities in the farm and then recover. And then, oh my God, this is happening. And then recover. And you're just because you can't go to college. I mean, I guess you can now, but
you can now.
You're kidding back then. You guys had to figure all this out because not a lot of people were growing to scale. The way that you guys were doing
and
it.
A lot of trial and error.
There's expensive trial and error.
Been a lot of rounds lost to bugs and, various different challenges over the years while we figure out the sweet spot. Like one example is back in the medical days, one of the pesticides that we would use if we got to the point of outbreak where we couldn't control it with, companion planting or predatory pests was spinosad. And that's a pesticide that's organically approved. We're clean green certified. And so it's listed on their list as appropriate, which is kind of like a mere organic certification. But the state of Oregon disallowed that pesticide because it's one that's controlled. And what it is just a culture that was found in some sill in, I think, Puerto Rico back in the 80s. And then, some pesticide guys figured out how to grow it.
Right.
And, it goes in and it kills a lot of bugs that are very hard to kill in our system. But, that's something that we're not allowed to use anymore. But if you go into Whole Foods and buy your kale, they could have sprayed it on it the day before. And it would be fine in that situation. But we can't use it on our cannabis, 2 months ahead of time.
And that's one thing we didn't touch on is your clean green certification. That's actually a really, really important badge to have on your cannabis.
Well, yeah, and it was the first program that was out there. Since there's been a lot of programs that have popped up over the years that offer various different levels of organic certification. I'd like it to get to the point where we don't have to use a separate system, where we aren't discriminated by Oregon Tilth or, CCOF, one of the others, mainstream certifiers for organic production, because it's like a wedding every time you tell them your cannabis. They like, break out the checkbook. We're gonna overcharge and underdeliver.
Absolutely.
You ain't kidding there.
But for your medical patients, I mean, we have people. I remember when I was working in your store, we had patients that would come far and wide just for that certification.
And I think it's a big deal. And
I think it is too.
Having that option in the market, unfortunately, most cannabis consumers are driven by price, and typically what you see for an organic production system, if you look, across into other industries, is about a 20% premium of what, is paid in the market relative to its conventional or, synthetic counterpart. And so, we're still struggling in this market, trying to achieve that goal. But I think that, as it continues to mature and as our prices become more in line with, what a regular industry would be, where we don't have to have, specialized banking, or we don't have to have, specialized certifications, where we can just, I mean, I don't know how much you guys have gone into the whole politics, all of this here.
Well, I'm on CPOT.
Okay.
So I'm on one of the subcommittees, and one of the, we've been talking a lot about safety, things like that. Trying to develop questionnaires for different dispensaries. and different parts of the industry to see what can, make things better. Talking about education as well, getting into local school districts and to help kids abstain until they are of age, because we know of brain development, we know these things. That's why we say 21 and over,
Well,
because that's why we say that. But yeah, I know about the politics.
you
Yeah.
guys seem to be doing a pretty good job, because I know teen use right now is down from when they first legalized back in 2016, which
Yeah.
I was pretty surprised about. The one
Depends
thing
on
that
who's being
really,
honest,
really upsets me that Tyson touched on is we're getting taxed federally, and we're not getting recognized federally.
Correct.
And there's this whole thing about taxation without representation that just seems to stick in my head a little bit. And yeah, you have a really good video.
You guys hear that?
With
All of Matt's social media just got shut down.
yeah, you're more than welcome
I'm just
to
kidding.
come get it.
We've been shut down like
Go
5
ahead, I'm
times.
sorry.
But you were in a car
Yeah.
with
Jeff Merkley.
Jeff Merkley,
Yeah.
Senator Merkley, and you guys are driving down to Salem with a large duffel bag full of cash.
Yeah, the Huffington Post headline was Democratic Senator caught with $70,000 in drug money.
Oh, I bet Fox News just went, what?
It's like a mafia run.
Yeah, no, I was actually talking to Merkley a few months back about, the banking changes that we've been pushing for the last 5 years now.
Pretty hard.
And, the reason for not seeing movement there has always been Republican control of the Senate. And he hasn't been able to introduce legislation because the person that's in charge of the Senate banking subcommittee hasn't allowed that legislation to be introduced. But now that Democrats control the Senate, he's able to introduce that legislation. But he says because of infighting amongst the Democratic senators, they haven't introduced the legislation because the Chuck Schumer thinks that they can get a full legalization bill passed, which by all means, I'd rather see it go that way myself, but, Jeff Merkley said that he doesn't think that they have enough votes to get the full legalization passed. And so they're not going to hear his bill until Schumer decides whether or not this is going to get a vote for the whole Senate for full legalization.
Yeah.
And so that means that reasonable banking reform that we have the votes in the Senate and the House to pass right now is not being put to the floor because of all of these other politics that we're dealing with.
Yeah, they can't even get an infrastructure bill passed right now. You actually left your farm and went down to Washington a few years ago, correct?
Multiple times.
Yeah.
I've been there to lobby and meet with senators and congressional reps. And, every year we went, there was definitely more awareness. At first, they were like, what's this? And now they at least
tweet it.
I know. Call security. Something smells weird around here.
Stinks in here.
Yeah, but, it's common. The majority of the states at least have some CBD rules on the books now, if not full medical or recreational.
And some of these recreational states are full on Republican. Take a look at Colorado and, some of these other places. So, I mean, I think cannabis is probably one of the most bipartisan things that we could probably be talking about right now, because Republicans experience pain and they're all about making money and businesses and all that other fun stuff. So
I think it's money.
It should just be right up their alley. Hopefully one of these days soon. We appreciate all your efforts, though. We really do.
Yeah, and I think that it's probably worth going back again. I kind of avoided the Trump years. Seemed like they had other
kind of
issues.
A waste of time. Yeah, you guys are y'all busy.
We focus on things here in Oregon during those years.
Just gonna grow my plants.
Yeah, just keep my head down. But we still have to pay MAPS Credit Union over $500 a month per account just for them to take our deposits.
How many banks have you gone through?
We've it was funny. I went into one of these corporate banks. We won't mention the name of it. Just the other day to try and open an account for one of my non-cannabis touching businesses, and apparently I was on the blacklist from 2014. And they said that, nope, sorry, you still can't open an account with us. I'm like, well, this doesn't even have anything to do with weed. Nope, sorry, you're on the blacklist.
Now you've been marked for life.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I don't know how to get past that, but hopefully it will. I'm really the only way to solve the problem is to address the root cause, right? And that's
yeah.
federal scheduling of cannabis, and it
Yep.
needs to be descheduled. And once it's descheduled, then all the other dominoes should fall into place.
Right.
And, it'll be, like any other agricultural product that's, medicinal.
Good. And it damn well should be, because it's a plant.
Yeah. I'm going to go back to the farm for a minute.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. No, that's perfect. That's why we're here. I mean,
don't get me going on politics, damn it.
That's exactly why we're here, though, is to talk about everything. You grow indoors, but outdoors.
Yeah.
Sort of. Is that, tell me how that is, because I love outdoor grown cannabis. I especially love concentrates made from outdoor grown cannabis. I'll mention Lion Tree, Sterling Gold.
Aaron's awesome down
there.
Our
friends
down there. Yep.
It's just one of my favorite products. Always has been.
I wish we had weather like he does.
Yeah.
When I look in the middle of November and he still has a bunch of outdoor plants, I'm like, man, I am so
giant
jealous.
Bushes, giant trees.
So, a lot has to do with the environment. If you're growing in Alaska or maybe some other very unfriendly cultivation environment, indoor cultivation or shipping makes sense. And since it's federally illegal, you can't ship it across state lines. So, you have to cultivate it with the use of supplemental lighting, heat, dehumidification, protection from the elements. And whether you choose to do that, with 4 walls and a ceiling or, a greenhouse, in my opinion, it's you're protecting the plant, right? And when you have an environment like Aaron does down at Lion Tree, the Applegate Valley, one of the north end of the Emerald Triangle,
so beautiful too.
You can grow very good quality outdoor plants to maturity. Up here, we have to choose strains that finish early.
Speed versus hardiness,
Yeah, you can't grow a lot of outdoor sativas up here, you need those faster finishing indicas. And you'll see it in the market too. It's interesting. A lot more people choose to grow that in Oregon. And so it's rare to find your outdoor sativas. But, when we first started growing, like I was saying, we started in a basement in a garage, and we, went the indoor route. And that was primarily because of laws. You didn't want your neighbor to know you're growing weed. Even if it was protected by the medical program, you're likely to get robbed. You're likely to run into some sort of social challenge. Because what you're doing is illegal from their eyes. And so I think that really pushed a lot of cannabis growers underground, literally. And a lot of them have never come out from that mindset. And so when we moved out to our farm in 2012, I came from more of a traditional agriculture background, and I knew that no plants in traditional agriculture are grown indoors. These days you hear some vertical farms, with LEDs for leaf lettuce, and I think it's interesting. And I
just recently read an article about a company who's putting in grow boxes in people's houses so they can grow their own little vegetables in their kitchen.
And I think
so you got your fridge and then
a
grow thing.
And I think everybody should grow their own weed too, because I think that's a great learning experience. And and it makes good weed that you can be proud of. And then it's good for a couple of months, and then the rest of the year, you have
supplement.
You have to figure out, are you going to smoke concentrates, or what are you going to do to get through that other 10 months of the year, or some people are really good at preserving it and can make it last 6 or 8 months.
I mean, coming from Alaska, I grew 6 plants outside very fast. And it always turned out pretty good. Just knowing what I know today, it was probably in the 10 to 15% range, which was perfectly fine. But it vacuum sealer and seal it up, and I didn't have concentrates back then.
I tell you, the first time anyone ever trims their own weed, they will know exactly why it costs what it costs. I used to trim trees for Portland General Electric, and I hate trimming weed. It's just it's a chore. You're cool for the first hour, and after a while, you're like, you know what? This is never ending.
I can't feel my fingers. Oh my god!
You guys have got some amazing strains. Some stuff. Your Durban Poison has been featured in magazines for years now. Where did you guys come across some of these genetics? Because you've had them since the beginning.
Yeah. No, a lot of them are medical strains that have been available. We've made a handful of our own, through various different crossing. That's actually what I've enjoyed the most recently. Not this dog walker that you're smoking that was actually bred by his name's slipping my mind, but he works up at Roots Garden Supply.
Oh, yeah.
For Neil up there. But Veterans Kush is one that I'm a real big fan of. It's a train wreck cross, so an old, throwback
old
to
school,
Eugene,
yeah.
But it has a real OG Kush, but a little bit sweeter. I'll go ahead and open it up and give it a smell. The smell and the taste is really what
I'm
I
gonna let you
love.
open it one time because I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay.
We're not smoking it.
We had Ryan Heron from the Loud 100 here one time, and he brought in like 20 different things to open and smell, and that's when I had to put signs up in the building.
Well,
I blame him.
Only open it once, then. You smell it through the
you
jar.
Can smell it.
I can smell it now. That just smells awesome.
Yeah.
That smells freaking great.
I was thinking about Justin's question with indoor cultivation versus greenhouse versus outdoor. And, we're talking about how indoor cultivation came about, and we followed that for many years. It wasn't until I think in 2017 that we stopped growing indoor. We grew indoor for the OLCC and for the medical program. But ultimately, we felt that we could create a better quality product and use fewer resources by growing in a greenhouse than we could under only artificial light. And so in our greenhouses, we supplied them with as much light as most indoor farmers use, as much dehumidification, heat. So the plants are getting exactly what they would have got had we done it indoors. But then we're also introducing the ability to turn on the sun when it's available, which, here for a few months out of the year, we get great sun. We get a lot of, long vegetative growth, May, June, July.
Been getting some heat.
And there's a very good reason why these lights are designed to mimic the sun. It's because the sun, and you can't beat it.
Yeah, you get a lot of different spectrums, and you'll see where they're actually starting to add like UVA and UVB into some of these artificial lights because, they used to talk about, the PAR, the photosynthetic active range of 400 to 700 is the only things that plants need to grow.
Right.
But what they're finding out is that far red and far blue lights have significant impacts on the biology of the plant and on the microbes and the various different systems that occur. And by introducing these other light spectrums, you see, it inhibits mold, it inhibits powdery mildew. I think it creates a healthier soil.
So I was going to say, just like the soil, now we've got sun, and it's just your nutrient endpoints are only going to do so much. I think that's really interesting that the sun is actually starting to play a large part on flavor production and pesticide.
Do you do a lot of test runs? Like try different lights, try different things?
Oh yeah, we've tried a ton over the years. We've tried a lot of different LEDs, a lot of different high pressure sodiums. We've even tried one light called the Sun on Demand.
Yeah, I know Sun on Demand.
Yeah, it's a plasma light that was designed to specifically recreate all of the spectrums of the sun so that they could test the efficiency of solar panels. And, this light is insanely expensive, but they've tried to manufacture it so that they could apply it to our industry. It still costs, 2, if not 3 times more.
If I'm not misunderstood, they use it in Hollywood.
Do they?
For overhead lighting to make it look like you're outside.
Daylight, they have been using it for that.
And they can change the gases inside of this bulb to where they can recreate the sun, whether you want the sun from outer space or if you want the sun from Los Angeles through the haze, or, do you want a fall sun or a spring sun, And what they found is that this bulb, it never burns out. They've had it burning for over 100,000 hours in a test chamber and had no degradation with light quality. While high pressure sodiums, LED lights, they all, high pressure sodium about 10,000 hours.
Yeah, over
LED lights, 50,000 hours, this over 100,000 hour, no degradation. What actually fails with this light is the ballast and the hardware, not the bulb. So you got to replace your ballast instead of your bulbs. But hey,
it's a trial and error thing.
2 to 3 times the cost, but lasts that much
you
longer.
find something really good, and it just needs that extra hardware.
Yeah,
I get that.
But you got to make it cost competitive because we're growing, plants that have had a lot of price pressure over the last few years. What was sold in 2017, we're at a fraction of those prices these days, all the way through the supply chain. And so, when you're competing with the sun that's free, how much can you afford to spend on light? And I think that if you're growing in off seasons or indoors or using it supplementally, those are great reasons to use supplemental light. But if you have the sun at your disposal, you should use it.
Yeah, absolutely.
How many current cultivars on the market?
For sofresh or in general?
Yeah, for sofresh. Because you have sofresh and then you have Tree Frog, right?
Yeah.
And I go to OF probably once every 2 weeks and pick up a quarter of dog walker.
Yeah.
I'm always hoping that I hope it didn't run out.
We're having a sale on it here starting. We're going to have some pre-packs from the last batch available here real soon before this one hits the market. So you might want to stock up.
Yeah, I think I probably will. But I always get there. I was like, man, I forgot to check the menu. I hope it's there. I hope the homies are there. Because I hate stopping by and
you want to go where everybody knows your name.
I want to be like, cheers. I walk in.
I'll tell you what.
For
me, there's Durban Poison, and then there's Tyson's Durban Poison.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, dear Lord.
I mean, I got to admit, the first 2 cultivars I ever bought from, I started working at Oregon's Finest in September 2015. Megan Marchetti hired me.
Oh yeah,
it was just before you came in.
Oh yeah,
I think she moved back to Idaho. I heard.
Love you, Megan.
We love you. I remember talking to Selena.
She's still there.
Still there.
And we
telling us all what we like.
Yeah, I was like trying to figure out, what I wanted to try, what I wanted to do, and so she hooked me up with the Durban, and then I think the other one was, I'm trying to remember.
Black Betty's one that always comes into my heart.
It wasn't Black Betty, but it was something similar. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head.
Betty Hayes.
That's it.
That's another high terpene.
And those are the 2 that I took home that night. And I was like, God damn, and I tried every weed, every cultivar we had on the shelf. I was like, man, this is just opened up a whole new world. Because I always had to roll the dice. If I didn't have my own, I rolled the dice with somebody else who I knew was growing maybe and had great cannabis.
Yeah.
Washington for me was never a problem. Everybody grows weed there that I know. But in Alaska, sometimes,
different.
Yeah, you don't want to have that one friend that you just go to get weed for, but usually you do.
It's a little different.
You don't want to.
There's some variety.
It's like Pineapple
market.
Express. So, I don't want to go in and sit down and smoke weed with you. I just want to get a bag and go.
We do have a strain that we made called Portland Pineapple. That's Pineapple Express Cross. That's just sickeningly sweet. It's like the terpenes on it. If you're walking and you touch the plant while it's growing, and you put the sticky on your tongue, it tastes like pineapple.
It's funny that you mentioned Portland Pineapple. I got a good Portland Pineapple story for you. I was in Bandon, Oregon, playing golf on one of the most beautiful golf courses in the world. And I was reaching in my golf bag because I had some weed with me, and I was reaching my golf bag and and I found a little container just like this, and it said Portland Pineapple on it. And I was like, shit, I must have stuck that in my bag and just forgot about it. It had been probably like a year, and we took it out and smoked it up. It was great.
Did it still smell good and taste good?
Oh, yeah. I actually took a big old puff on the 9th hole on Old McDonald down at Bandon and ended up hitting the pin.
Oh, well, more people have to try that. I'll make sure I smoke some Portland Pineapple next time.
There you go. Prove your game a little bit.
Beautiful view behind me of the ocean, and I just popped it up, and it just hit the pin and popped right back. And I was like, woohoo!
I want to give a little shout out. I was just thinking about Oregon's Finest. The education that I got out of that store, particularly from Selena. She's going to hate that I'm mentioning this. But you guys used to have a little thing up at Oregon Health Sciences University that you would actually go up and talk to the doctors. Because while I was working at the shop in the Pearl, I would have surgeons come down from the hill and talk to me about medical advice, which we're not allowed to talk about.
No.
You ever talk about medical stuff with a doctor when you're not licensed with it, but you guys armed me with the information that we needed to have at that point. If you guys are ever looking to have a question or just need to talk to somebody about weed, I would highly recommend checking out Oregon's Finest. The education level at that place really got me off to a good start in this industry, and I've been able to build upon that for the last 7 years. But I was always really impressed with just the knowledge base of the employees down there.
Thank you.
Stuff.
Yeah, they always impress me
guys,
too.
yeah, she really is incredible. So I'm telling you.
I mean, I'll even second that because I mean, I had a position there where I got to interact with a lot of people growing cannabis in the early days.
Yep.
Got to see a lot of boo-boo. Got to see a lot of that good. But far more boo-boo than good.
Yeah.
But I mean, you just
still the case.
Yeah. It was just the education as far as, I'd already, you read stuff over your whole life, you grow, people that grow, you smoke, but you just don't have, it's a different level, especially when I came in was medical still, and getting that education about, I didn't know I knew what terpenes were, but I didn't know it was like part of the whole whole
and we're all
full
learning
spectrum
still,
part of,
I think
every day.
I have a hip surgery coming up, and I'm trying to get my whole plant capsules, decarb, stuff handy, because I'm not going to take pain pills. This is not going to happen.
No, it's amazing all the applications that we've seen, and I'm sure there's going to be a million more applications as the entourage effect, as Ethan Russo likes to call it, becomes more understood, and we know what compounds to mix to achieve what results. And there's been a lot of great information shared and learned from all of the different pioneers that are trying to understand the plant and understand the people that depend on the plant. Did we grow the plant or did the plant grow us, right?
And that's why I appreciate some of these older companies. I consider you guys one of the legacy companies in the state of Oregon. And one of these days when we get to drop the wall and be able to send this stuff nationwide, I really do think that Pacific Northwest, Oregon, Sofresh Farms are really going to be leading the way to kind of show the rest of the country how it's done.
Yeah, and I think that one of the challenges that we're faced with is the education, because when we all first started smoking weed, we didn't understand there's various different types of weed.
Who knew?
We didn't understand there's quality levels. It was like, oh, it's weed.
Yeah, I used to tell people at the shop back in the day, this stuff just used to get me high, and now I'm riding a unicorn through the through the woods, and I'm just like somewhere in between that and my inability to know should be the truth somewhere. We'll
I think about all the people that ripped me off, buying dime bags.
And they weigh 10% light. You're like, wait, I paid for that.
Fresh off the vine, got to dry it for a week, and then it turns out to be like half a gram.
Or you're picking out the seeds and the
stems. I bought an eighth of the yellow pages. Apparently, when you roll it up and stomp it in the ground, it looks just like weed. I bought $40 worth of paper.
Yeah, that happened to my buddy in San Francisco. He bought a bag full of like tree stems and string.
Yeah. Now I don't feel so bad.
Terrible.
Yeah, I think some dispensaries might still sell that, but you wouldn't find that.
There's a couple, I think. I see like special $2 joint, and I'm like, oh boy,
what snap, crackle, pop! Here comes
what's that all about?
Right?
I mean, I don't care. I don't know, $2 joint.
Are you guys still doing the 2-pack? Half-gram joints, remember back in the day, the cones?
We are. We do those, and we also do a tree roll that's a little bit more price competitive. But
it's not $1.
That's just the perfect. Those things are the perfect size.
Thank you.
Half-gram. That's all you need. That's all I need nowadays.
Yeah, no, I've especially with good weed, with some of that $2 weed, you might need to smoke the whole thing and still have a little sore throat.
I used to think, I'd get cones and rollies, and I'd be like, I'm golden,
right?
Yeah,
what do we got?
So golden. Yeah,
what's the future hold for you guys?
Oh yeah,
what's coming up?
Future
anything you can share.
We're looking at releasing a pack of our own as far as on the pre-roll side. I see that a lot of people don't want to buy one or two these days. They want to buy 10 of them. Or,
are we talking variety pack, like
I think
hybrid
both,
sativa?
Nice. I think that depending on, I think that we'll start with just a single, strain specific packs, but creating a little bit of options in the market. It seems like more people that are heavy cannabis cannabis consumers. And, frankly, I don't like creating all that plastic waste.
Mm.
I've purchased way too many tubes over the years.
Yeah, and that's not by choice.
No.
No.
And I think if we can do something with cardboard and cellophane, it'll be a lot more environmental friendly, yet still deliver a quality
So you
product.
roll your own kit.
Yeah, we got plenty of those.
Yep.
Yeah.
Roll your own kit comes with sofresh papers, and it's all
I actually
recycled material.
I stopped smoking weed a couple of years ago, and I just vaporize it now.
Yeah.
Use your PAX 3, right?
Yeah,
That's what I have one of those too.
Ever since I used to smoke a lot of joints and take a lot of dabs,
Yep.
and that was my
you start
my
feeling it.
go-to. Yeah, and now after so many years of doing that, if I want to keep up with my kids and be able to go exercise, it's like I got to have something that I can breathe appropriately. And smoking a lot of carcinogens is not a good recipe for breathing.
I like the vaporizer, and I'll plug PAX 3. I mean, I dig it.
Well, and they're so great over there. I mean, it's a product that's very durable. Like, I carry it with me everywhere I go.
Yeah. It's very portable.
I took mine to Chicago.
It makes weed taste better too, because when you got good weed, you don't need to combust it. I might need to take a couple more pulls to get what I get off of a dab, but it tastes good, and I don't mind taking a couple more pulls.
It's a pleasurable experience.
I'm not coughing.
That's what I like about vaporizers, though, is the taste is more prevalent. I mean, after the first hit of a regular combustible, I feel like, you
might get 2 or 3 green hits.
That's about it. But I like the vaporizer because it keeps it consistent, and I can taste the flavor all the way through it.
Yeah, and if you want to be an old Stoney, I think that you got to vaporize,
And I'll be honest with you,
right? Absolutely,
I save my spent fuel and make cookies out of it.
There you go. That's
and
smart.
The cookies get me ripping high.
I'll save mine for you too.
Oh my God. It works though. I'm telling you.
ABB, man, it's the way to go.
Yeah.
It's like I don't have to put it in the oven and decarb it. It's already.
No, you already got it there. That's right.
It's pretty nice.
Yeah, make some butter out of it.
I make these little peanut butter ball things, and they get you ripping high.
Yep.
And I just use my spent fuel usually.
I'd love to try one of those.
I'll
make the recipe.
I'll be. I got
my wife making.
I got a whole jar of dog walker decarb.
There you go.
I'll make some peanut butter balls.
There you go.
We'll get super ripping high. Well, we're almost done for today's show.
Yeah, pulled an hour out, man. That's a good conversation.
Yeah.
It didn't even seem like it. That's how
it doesn't when you got good conversation, good friends.
Future of SoFresh. Where can people find you? Because I know social media sometimes.
Yeah, we've been shut down on social media a half dozen times. It's
the
very
same
frustrating.
story.
Very frustrating.
Another one of those discriminations against cannabis businesses that's totally unfounded.
Get your Twitter going, okay? Twitter doesn't mind.
Really?
Yeah, they don't care.
Yeah, I've never been a tweeter, but I'll have to take that and run with it.
One reason why I've been using it so much.
Yeah, we're actually in the process of building out the rest of our farm. We've never completed our license capacity.
Yeah, you guys got a big piece of property out there.
We're currently about 60% of what we're licensed to grow, which we've been for the last couple of years. And what we're going to do this winter, we're in the process of expanding to do more light depth and more outdoor. I think that we can grow really good quality light depth flowers, meaning, everything. The way the OLCC license you is if you have light on your flowering canopy, that's considered indoor, or lit canopy, and you can produce 10,000 square feet per license. And if you have an unlit canopy, or anything but lights on your flowers, you can still use it for veg. You can produce 40,000 square feet. And so the same license, they have ratios that you can use. And so right now we produce about 6,000 square feet of indoor or lit canopy, and then about the same outdoor. And what we're going to do is we're in the process of expanding our outdoor onto our back 3 acres, making it so that it'll be more efficient to grow, better quality, and probably be using that more for extraction products, because that's another law that changed recently. We can now start to sell our own extraction products again. And so we've never been been able to do that
That's
since
cool.
the OLCC started. We've always had to sell those products to a wholesaler, to a
Right.
retailer. Can't take them back to the farm. And so that's a change. And when you combine that change with the shift in the market, more people want to buy joints. That's one of the few areas that's improving. And I really like, a sun-grown joint.
Yeah.
The flavor.
Now we're talking.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's good stuff.
And so that's the immediate future. I think that longer range, as soon as cannabis is descheduled, we're looking forward to be able to ship it across state lines and introduce the people in Florida some good Northwest weed.
That's right. It's coming too, guys.
Yeah, get it out there.
You're going to be very, very happy when it does.
Get it out there. It's gonna be like it's gonna be like Oregon wine. It's just gonna hit the market and go crazy.
Yeah.
Well, Tyson Haworth from SoFresh Farms down in Canby, Oregon. Longtime activist, political guy, farmer. I like to call you farmers.
Yeah.
You're farmer.
You're farmers.
You're not a gardener. You're
the
a farmer.
most respectful title I can have.
Yeah,
right. Fine purveyor of cannabis for years and years now, and we hope that you continue to do so.
Well, we thank you for having me on, and thank you for all your support of Oregon's Finest and SoFresh over the years. And
absolutely.
You'll have to let me know what you think of this latest batch of Dog Walker. It's one of my favorites.
I'll text you in about 10 minutes.
Yeah. It takes me 15 to get home.
Why don't I just get you a carbon filter for the studio?
Yeah, there you go.
That's not a bad idea. That's not a bad idea.
We've been growing weed indoors for many years. You can do it right next to your neighbor. They'll never know.
We'll put the towel down under the door like in college.
Absolutely. Well, Tyson, thank you again for coming by.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
The Old Stoney's podcast in the books
Right
for
on.
another week. Thank you so much for checking us out. And thanks, of course, going to talkcastpdx.com. Thanks for listening at aftermath.fm. We appreciate that. Of course, the show brought to you by budtendershirts.com. Go buy a shirt, support the show, walk around with your funkin' Go Nuts shirt on. You'll be happy that you did.
There you go.
And we just want to thank you again. And of course, you can listen to the podcast as well as watch it at talkcastpdx.com or wherever you listen to podcasts. Matt Cristione.
That's me.
That's him.
That's
Justin
me.
McDonald. Till next time, keep on smoking.